So I have a couple more things to finish up on the frame before I'm completely done. One of which is I need to cut the upper control arm brackets off the inside of the frame. Now mainly this is because on the driver's side, they're going to be in the way of the drive shaft. Once I get those brackets cut off, the next thing that I want to do is actually fill these holes in that are for the bolt to run through to the upper control arm. Now this doesn't need to be done, but I think it'll be nice because it's going to look a lot better, and also it's going to keep the mud, sand, and water out of the frame. So the first bracket I'm going to take off is actually going to be the upper control arm bracket on the driver's side. Now really this is probably the only one that I have to take off, and the reason being is because the drive shaft is going to be coming right through here to the transfer case, which you can see right there. So what will happen is anytime I'm getting up travel, it's going to be hitting on that. Should be pretty simple. Now obviously it's the inside of the frame, so it doesn't have to look the best, but you also want to make sure you're not cutting into your frame because that'll just make it weaker. So when you're cutting your brackets off, make sure, I'm going to start back here, make sure you leave a little bit of the old bracket on there, and then you can take a hard disc or whatever and just kind of grind it down. You just don't want to cut into your frame because then you're going to have to re-weld that. Now it might get a little tricky up top there. You know, if I have to, I'll grab the Sawzall, but other than that, it should be pretty easy. Now that's the only bracket I got to worry about on this side, and then move over to the passenger side and I got the same exact thing. Now this one I'm sure I don't have to take off. I don't see anything getting in the way there, but I'm going to go ahead and take it off anyways because it is unnecessary weight, and even though that doesn't weigh that much, you know, every little bit adds up, and plus it'll just look a little bit better. Now on the outside, I want this to look like it was never there. So what I want to do is get something that fits inside the hole that I can weld it up and grind it down. Now, I actually got lucky and found a piece of solid round stock that I'm going to cut down for about an 1/8 inch thick. And I'll put that in there and then I'll weld it up and then I'll finish it out. Now on the back side, since we're not going to see that, I'm just going to probably cut about a 2-inch square plate to go over the hole, and then I'll weld that up. Now if you don't have any round stock laying around, you could just take and try to cut the best circle you could out, or just cut like a square out, you know, maybe like 1 inch big, and then you just have to fill the gaps in with weld around it. In the end, as long as it's covered up and you can't tell it was there, is all that matters. This isn't nothing, you know, we're not doing nothing to make this stronger. We're just simply doing this to fill this hole in so mud and water and stuff doesn't get in there. One thing I want to do before I close the frame up is I want to coat the inside of the frame. Now it's kind of hard to get a regular spray nozzle in there, so I purchased this interior frame rust protection from Eastwood. Now this comes with a 2-foot spray nozzle, so you can just pull the normal spray tip off and put this 2-foot extension hose on. The only issue I see with this is when they send it to you, it's all wound up, so it's very near impossible. I've tried straightening this out, and every time I do it wants to go back to where it was the original spot. So what I did today is I took it and I stuck it in a pan of boiling water for a couple minutes to soften the hose up, and then I took it and just taped it down to the counter, and when it cooled down it stayed in the right shape. So we're going to go ahead and use this and spray the inside of the frame. Now the first thing I want to do before I weld is I took the grinder and I just made sure I got down to the bare metal. And what this is going to do is help me get a better ground when I go to weld it in. Now what I also did is I took my round piece of metal that I cut and I placed it on a magnet, and then I'm going to place that and the hole. And what that's going to do is make sure that the piece of metal I'm putting in there is flush with the frame itself. And you can see there's a little bit of a gap there as well around the piece of metal. And what that's going to do is make sure that I get some weld in there, because I am going to grind this down when I'm done, but I also want to make sure that I leave enough weld in there to actually hold the piece of metal inside the frame. Alright, so now we got that completely done. I sanded it out. Now you can see where it was just because there's different colors in the metal, but once I prime and paint this, you won't ever be able to tell. Real quick, I want to show you guys my frame that I cut off the Jeep. Now this is just the midsection on the driver's side, and when I took this frame off, it was just at least halfway filled with just everything you could possibly think of. And there's still a little bit of stuff in there. Now, there's a lot of dirt, sticks and rocks and stuff like that, but then there's also these big pieces of rust flaking off inside the frame. Now, I've already patched this frame many times, just because it's gotten so rusted, and you can actually see the bottom. Now this is actually going right here, right where the nut cert's at. There's really no way of fixing this. I mean, you can sit here and you can try to cobble stuff together. The best option is to actually cut the old piece of frame out and put a new piece of frame in. Now, if your frame's not this bad and you just want to kind of prevent this, or at least slow it down, the best option is after every trail ride, stick a garden hose in the hole that I just patched up. Now, you can also try to spray it in through these holes right here. But what I do is if you stick it in that front frame, the hose will actually fit in there. Leave it in there for about 10 minutes, and then also take your Jeep and put it at different angles. And that'll kind of wash some of that stuff out. Now if you do that after every trail ride and then let that dry and then put you some frame coating in there like I did today, it'll at least slow it down to where you can get the time or the money to change your frame or at least fix it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.